This woman has battled for 13 years to get justice for her murdered daughter.
I'll never ever give up, never. Till my dying day, and as long as I'm still drawing breath, and as long as there's someone to listen, I'll keep on going.
She knows who the murderer is. This man, who persuaded the courts to acquit him, then, when it was legally safe, boasted he was the killer all along.
He got away with a lot, really. He'd got away with killing my mum. And he'd basically a free man.
The killer is protected by a law passed 800 years ago that says people can't be tried twice for the same offence.
I want the law to be changed, but even if it isn't, I'll be one step behind him, like my daughter's ghost. A constant reminder of what he did to me and my family.
This is the story of a savage murder and one mother's relentless campaign that might yet help to rewrite Britain's law books. Julie Hogg was 22, a devoted mother and in daily contact with her family.
Julie was very outgoing and bubbly. She loved her life. When she was younger, she was quiet and shy, always around her mother.
She had a really good sense of humour. She was quite funny.
She was like caring, really caring, quiet, and a person who wanted things to be done right.
But as a mum and a little housewife, she was all right.
She'd drive home, and within 2 or 3 minutes she'd be on the phone for nothing of importance. It was just her nature. She didn't like to be by herself.
Julie was a teenage bride. On the day she married Andrew Hogg, the sun shone on them both and life looked good.
They seemed to be very much in love and looking forward to the future together.
But by autumn 1989, the marriage which began in such hope was in trouble. Julie and Andrew split up. Their son Kevin lived with her. Early on November the 16th, after a night shift delivering pizzas around Teesside, Julie was due in court for an important separation hearing. Kevin was with his grandparents.
I telephoned Julie at 7:30 on the morning of the 16th of November. And when I got no reply, I just thought she was in deep sleep and hadn't heard the telephone. So, after being ringing quite a while, I decided just to drive down to the house with Kevin. Knocked at the door, shouted through the letterbox. All the curtains were closed, doors were all locked. My gut feeling told me straight away something was wrong. I don't know, I just had this feeling. I just didn't know what to do. I went and got my son out of work to come and break in the back door. Room by room, everywhere was very, very tidy, which was out of character for Julie. She was quite an untidy person. I mean, she would get out of bed in the morning, throw the duvet back, and then shake it back over on the night. But the bed was made, everywhere was tidy. And that aroused his suspicion even more. So I telephoned the police then. They said she might have gone out, you know, be with some friends. The best thing for me to do was to go home and wait for her to phone.
One policeman said, she's a typical case. She's due for a legal separation. She got fed up, walked down the road and hitched a lift to London. No.
I knew what Julie was like. You know, she knew deep down there was something wrong. She hadn't just gone out for the nightclub, as the police thought. Maybe she'd been to a nightclub and stayed somewhere. She knew it wasn't that.
Julie's house remained as silent as the grave. Her parents repeatedly went to the police with their worries. As every agonizing hour passed with no news, their nightmare was only just beginning.
We went to Stockton police station and we met the inspector who was in charge of the investigation, and we told him this is not somebody who's disappeared from home. This is somebody who's disappeared mysteriously, and I'm telling you, as a mother, something's happened to our daughter. And I felt that was the first time in 3 days that somebody finally took us serious.
Julie's distraught family believed the key to her suspicious disappearance was hidden in the silent rooms of her tidy house.
The officer in charge asked for a forensic examination of that house, which was carried out. And that was a detailed examination to establish whether any evidence showed of any harm had come to anybody.
Police began their search some 4 days after Julie's reported disappearance. These video pictures of what they found have never been seen publicly before. Police told us they no longer had a copy of the tape. We've uncovered this one from elsewhere. Clothes wait to be taken out of Julie's washing machine. Plates and cutlery drained by her sink. Kevin's trike is near the door by the unopened mail. The house is eerily empty. After 2 days, Julie's mother rang the search team to check their progress.
I telephoned Julie's house, and one of the forensic team answered the telephone. And I said, "Oh, it's Julie's mum here." I said, "Have you found anything?" And he said, "There's no dead bodies in here, if that's what you mean."
Mrs. Ming visited the house herself and joined the searchers in Julie's cramped bathroom.
On the bathroom window ledge was Julie's makeup bag, birth pills, everything. I said, "You telling me she just took off to London?" I said, "She's left everything."
The longer the police poked about in Julie's possessions to little effect, the more concerned her family became.
At the end of the search, the inspector in charge of the case came to see us. And his very words were, he said, he couldn't guarantee us that our daughter hadn't come to grief somewhere in the country, but he could guarantee us nothing untoward had happened to her in that house.
You were getting worried. Where can she be? We used to be driving round, looking round. You get to a point, well, to be exact, I thought I was going out of my mind.
The search over, Julie's house was locked up, and with it, a terrible secret the police had not found. Officially, Julie was a missing person. As Christmas approached, her mother and little son Kevin made an emotional television appeal for her to come home.
Mummy.
So I kept racking my brains to think, well, you know, why? If she has just took off as the police are suggesting, why would she do it? And I wanted to believe them because I wanted her to be alive.
She would never just go off and leave Kevin, never at all. Never.
But my gut feeling told me she was dead.
Please, friends, anybody, just let us know you're alive, Julie, that's all.
Almost 3 months after the police had searched Julie's house, they returned the keys to her husband, Andrew. He and Kevin intended to move back in, but there was a problem. A terrible smell in the bathroom. Andrew called his mother-in-law for advice.
I walked in the house. Since I'm starting to go up the stairs and could smell the pungent smell. Inside was screaming, "Please God, don't let it be Julie." But outwardly I was like slow motion, just going up the stairs, walked into the bathroom, and before Andrew and Julie had split up, he'd taken all the tiles off around the bath, and I leaned over the bath to smell the wall, hoping that the smell would be from where they'd taken the tiles off. And as I leaned over the bath panel like wafted against my knees, and the smell came out stronger, and I just bent down and just writhed one corner of it open, and it was under the bath. And I just ran down the stairs and screaming at Andrew, she's under the bath, she's under the bath. Kevin stood next to me crying, he didn't know what was wrong. And I'm screaming up to Andrew, please God tell me it isn't. All I heard him say was, Jesus Christ, no. And he just started running down the stairs, and I just said, down, no.
It was murder now. Ironically, police had stood barely 2 feet from Julie's body when this video was made. Detectives hurried back to the house. The hunt was on for Julie's killer.
I mean, at first you think it's impossible. But as I got in now, Anne's screaming. And she's told us what had happened. Well, screamed it.
I was absolutely hysterical. I just kept seeing her, kept smelling her. Couldn't get the smell out my nostrils.
And at that, the police come. Paid another visit. And he didn't look very good.
27 Grange Avenue had finally given up its secret, some 80 days after Julie's killer pushed her naked, sexually mutilated body under the bath. We've established that 29 police officers had either searched or been present in Julie's house. No one found her watch, diary and cash card tossed suspiciously in the loft, and no one thought to unscrew the bath panel and look behind.
Are you disappointed that your officers weren't able to find the body the first time?
Naturally, from a professional point of view, and I'm responsible for the overall professional conduct of the investigating officers, there is a degree of disappointment.
I just couldn't believe that they'd been in a 3-bedroom terraced house for 5 days, a team of forensic officers, and failed to find Julie's body.
She's probably right to feel aggrieved about the fact that her daughter's body wasn't found by the police. However, I've no evidence, certainly in the papers that I've examined, to sustain the fact that the police did not take her reports very seriously.
I still believe in my own heart. If Julie had a different kind of job, a different lifestyle, or she was somebody important, they'd have found her that week.
Cleveland police paid Mrs. Ming £10,000 compensation after their failed search. But no amount of money could blot out the trauma she suffered and could never escape.
You plunge into this world where the word murder had been an alien word to you and your family, and then all of a sudden a member of your family, your daughter, had been murdered, and you're living and breathing it every minute of the day. You can't get it out of your mind. It's just an alien world.
The dramatic discovery in Grange Avenue made the local evening paper's last edition. But the story made Julie's family furious.
At 8:45, my phone rang, and it was Mrs. Ming. She said, I read the story last night and I want an apology. I said, what story, Mrs. Ming? About finding Julie. I said, well, what can we do for you? She says, you got it wrong. The police didn't find the body, I did.
Hi, Billy.
The police soon had a prime suspect, Billy Dunlop, who was lodging 2 streets from Julie's house. Detectives discovered he'd attended a bawdy strip show organised by Billingham Rugby Club the night before Julie disappeared. He'd been drinking heavily, mixing rum, vodka and cider. The night ended with Dunlop involved in a vicious brawl that left his opponent in hospital. Dunlop's account of what happened later aroused the suspicions of the murder squad. He said he went to visit a friend who lived close to Julie, then went back to his digs. But witnesses cast doubt on this. The police felt he was lying and arrested him.
Hi, Billy.
Neighbours only saw the Jack the Lad side of Billy Dunlop, but he was a Jekyll and Hyde character, according to the woman who once shared his life.
He came across as such a nice person, you know, Mr. Nice Guy, in front of people, making cups of tea, doing the housework, doing the cleaning, perfect father. But as soon as that door was shut, he was a completely different person.
Dunlop was an aggressive amateur rugby player. He turned out for Billingham, where he and his friends were known as the Crazy Gang because of their outrageous drunken behaviour. But he was also violent at home. Shortly before Julie's murder, he'd attacked his partners so badly, the couple split up.
He started hitting me, punching me, and then I went upstairs and he came up and he had a pickaxe handle with him. And he just started hitting me all over with it, down, like say, down my right side, my arms, my legs, in between my legs, and punching me. And then the next morning I was just a complete mess. When I got up in the morning, he was there. I managed to get the kids to school, and when I came back, all his stuff had gone.
Violence had been part of Billy Dunlop's life since childhood. He was in and out of care and the courts, despite all efforts to control him.
I tried to model their upbringing and the way I was brought up, which was very, very strict. Certainly smacking him was no good at all. I mean, as I said, you get one smack. Next time you do it, you'll get two. When I got up to 16, it just wasn't working.
9 days after Julie Hogg's body was found by her mother, Billy Dunlop was charged with murder. He was remanded to Durham Prison.
When we went to see him in prison, he said he didn't do it, and I believed him, and so did his mother. He was saying that the police had picked him up and started to fit him up for the crime. And it didn't appear to be a crime that our Billy would do. If he'd have killed somebody, he would have battered them to death.
Another person in two minds over Dunlop's guilt or innocence was his common-law wife.
I didn't want to believe it because I had children to him. That's their dad. I didn't want him to be that person for them. But in my heart's heart, I thought, you know, he could have done because of the things that he's done to me.
Dunlop's future was unknown. But Julie's family faced the certainty of her funeral and the ordeal of saying goodbye.
We had the music Ave Maria playing in the church, and I kept thinking the last time was the wedding. And here we are at the funeral, Julie, 22-year-old.
And I was left in the room where the coffin was, because it couldn't be opened, we couldn't see. To be exact, I ended up talking to her. I said, I will get the person responsible. I don't suppose I ever will, but that's the way I feel.
It all came into perspective when we were walking from the cars towards the church. All the people were inside the church and just looking up and looking at the coffin. And I just went hysterical. I was screaming. Nobody would listen. I told him and just took off it. I was just screaming at the coffin.
After Julie's funeral, her family bought a bench and put it in the garden of remembrance where her ashes were scattered.
What do you say to a child of 3? He kept saying was wrong in the bathroom. So what we told him was, rightly or wrongly, we told him that his mum had been in the bath and she'd slipped and hit her head because there was no bath mat in the bath. We said she was in heaven, and that sort of pacified him.
Kevin is now 16.
She hasn't been here for me through times when I needed her, like when parents' evenings have been on and family holidays. She hasn't been there to have fun. All I've got is photographs and memories of what I've been told from my nan and granddad and my dad, and my scrapbook, and that's it really.
In May 1991, Billy Dunlop went on trial in Newcastle for Julie Hogg's murder. Her family expected they'd now get justice and closure. The prosecution's case seemed strong. Julie's house keys were discovered under Dunlop's floorboards and had his fingerprints on them. Semen on the blanket around Julie's body could have been his. As Julie's mother found the body, she was a key witness.
You've got a defence barrister asking you questions about when you went into the bathroom, which hand did you put into the bath to pull the bath panel first, and all the time you're getting flashback one after the other. You can't see anything in the courtroom. All you can see, you're back in the bathroom. You can smell Julie, you can see Julie. One of my main worries was I had put her under the bath and she was still alive and left her there to die. And all the time, Dunlop is sat in the dock.
I was about 4 foot away from him. He was there and I'm sat above him. And if I'd have got hold of him, there's no doubt about it, I'd have been in prison.
Julie's sex life was raked over by prosecution and defense alike. She'd had many lovers, and her private life was splashed across the newspapers.
The talk was always about Julie's background, not Dunlop's background. It was always Julie. They portrayed her as having a lot of sexual partners. That's what they're saying. If she wasn't that kind of person, it doesn't matter what background you've got, you don't deserve to end up the way Julie ended up. An horrific death like that.
Dunlop had sex with Julie once, in her home, a month before she was murdered. This allowed him to explain away his fingerprints on her keys and his possible DNA on the blanket around the body. 4 days before Julie's murder, she'd refused to have sex with him again. The prosecution alleged he'd tried his luck one more time after the strip show.
You tried it on with her. You tried to persuade her to have sex with you.
No. No, that's not right. I never even went round.
She refused you and you killed her.
I never even went round the house.
You smothered her with a pillow.
I never even went round.
In a rage, you used some instrument on her, causing that massive injury to her vagina. That is what I suggest happened.
That's just pure imagination. I never had nothing to do with it.
Every question that was put to him, he closed his eyes before he answered. And he didn't come over in the witness box as an aggressive type of person.
Dunlop argued that witnesses were lying or mistaken about his movements, that someone had planted Julie's keys in his lodgings.
Are you telling the jury that you have been framed for a murder that you have not committed?
It looks that way, doesn't it? I had nothing to do with it. I know I haven't.
You were sober enough that night after you killed her to make it look as though she disappeared.
I never even killed her.
Somebody put the body there.
I didn't put it there. I had nothing to do with it whatsoever.
The failed police search of Julie's house was a gift to the defense. Her body had deteriorated so much that the cause of her death could not be established with certainty. more doubts were sown in the minds of jurors.
Anne and Charlie had sat through the whole of that trial. They'd listened to the evidence. They observed the witnesses as the jury had observed the witnesses. And they, I think, have formed a view that the jury were going to convict.
After a night of deliberation, the jury returned. Against every hope of Julie's family, they couldn't reach a verdict. The judge ordered a retrial.
It was just terrible, because you had to go through all the same again when the defence barrister asking you same questions again, and the flashbacks, nightmares, just horrendous. The nightmares before the court case, the flashbacks, smelling Julie while you stood in the witness box.
Yet again, Julie's parents had to hear the harrowing detail of her death. And yet again, a jury failed to agree Dunlop was guilty. Dunlop was formally acquitted of killing Julie Hogg.
That's the point when all of that tension manifested itself in Anne, and she collapsed to the floor. She effectively fainted and screamed, was in floods of tears. And Charlie and I had to effectively lift her out of the court.
The police brought me and my husband home from the court, and just numb with shock. Because at the end of going through all what you'd had to go through, and a trial and a retrial, and no justice for Julie.
Billy Dunlop walked free, legally innocent, whatever anyone suspected. And under an 800-year-old law called double jeopardy, he could never be tried for the same offence again. For Julie's family, that would be salt in wounds that could never heal. Billy Dunlop, free at last, went on television to urge the police to catch Julie Hogg's real killer.
It is just a relief that it's all over with now. They've been pointing the finger at me for 20 months, and they've found now that it was in the wrong direction, and I would like them now to reopen this case and start looking in the right direction.
Are you seeking recompense, compensation?
Well, I feel that I should be given something for the 20 months that I've spent behind bars for something that I haven't done.
A national newspaper offered Dunlop money for his story. He and his common-law wife, Jane Wadsworth, posed for these happy family pictures. But Jane was faking. She dreaded her violent partner's homecoming.
I just cried, because it was just a fear. He's coming home, he's coming out, and I just sat and cried. I didn't want him to come home. I wanted him to stay where he was.
Dunlop soon resumed his heavy drinking in pubs around Billingham. His notoriety and reputation as a hard man spread further after he'd walked free from the Julie Hogg murder trial. Dunlop believed he was beyond the law. Within weeks, he made a startling claim to his partner.
Got me in the kitchen, he got me by the throat, started strangling me up on the kitchen wall, had me picked up by the kitchen wall, strangling me. Just being abusive and all the rest of it and that, and swearing and shouting at me as usual. And saying that he'd kill me. He'd done it before and he'd kill me. He'd got away with it.
Was he trying to intimidate Jane? Or had he really got away with killing Julie? His partner wasn't the only one to hear his murderous boasts.
We went to the police when we were told he'd been boasting about killing Julie, and the police said they were powerless because of the double jeopardy rule. To walk free from a court and then to brag that he'd killed your daughter, and then because of the 12th century law, he can escape justice.
If Mrs. Ming felt powerless to act against her daughter's killer, so did the woman who lived with him. Jane Wadsworth was trapped in a violent, abusive relationship, fearful of an uncertain future with 3 children. Finally, she could take no more and ran away with them.
I always just think it was my fault that he did the things that he did, because he used to blame me. Give him, you know, if I'd watched Home and Away and Neighbours, I got beaten because he told me not to, that I shouldn't have done it, I disobeyed him. You never knew what he'd be like when you woke up or when he walked out the door, what mood he'd be in when he came in. He could go out happy, then he'd come in a really bad temper and you'd get it.
But escaping Billy Dunlop wasn't that easy. He traced Jane by combing through an entire phone book to locate the address of a number she'd used to ring his father. Jane then received a peace offering, this videotape.
I think, Jane, at the end of the day, if you come to court on the 10th, even if you don't let the kids off school, come to court on the 10th and let's talk about the kids. Let's get something sorted out. It's the kids that matter here, not us two.
Jane agreed to meet Dunlop, even though at this stage he'd been convicted of threatening to kill her.
When I met him, he was fine, he was Mr. Nice Guy.
All your clothes are still here, and your toys, and your bikes. I've still got your bikes. I haven't sold your bikes. I have no intention of selling your bikes. I've still got all Man's clothes and all the perfumes and what have you.
Saw the children, he was okay. Just basically normal.
It's up to me and my mum to sort it out. It's not your fault. It's not fault. It's not it's mine and your mum's. Probably mostly mine. I haven't said that.
When he was supposed to go home, he asked if he could stay and see stay with the children, which he did. And during that time, he got very aggressive and violent. He sexually assaulted me. And after the assault, he went into the kitchen and brought a knife. And it was only one of my children at the top of the stairs crying, and was coming down that he stopped. But I do think he would have killed me then.
Just tell you I still love you and that. You can come home anytime you want. The door's always open for you.
Soon after, unable to take any more violence and threats, Jane finally broke with Billy Dunlop. She won total legal control of her children and resumed her new life. She's never seen Billy Dunlop since.
My worst nightmare would be him to knock on my door.
Billy Dunlop's violent temper soon erupted again when he spotted a former girlfriend with another man.
I'd heard what he's capable of, and I knew about what his past had been, but I never knew him myself, and I'd never even spoke a word to him. He crept into the flat, bit as quiet as he could. I didn't notice him right till more or less the last minute. I just turned round for a second and just caught a glimpse of him swinging the bat towards me. And that first blow, that was the one that knocked me out. He carried on going berserk with this bat and hitting me, repeatedly hitting me, apparently till the bat had snapped. And that's when he stopped.
Dunlop also turned on the woman, repeatedly stabbing her with a meat fork. At the time, she was pregnant with his child.
My facial skeleton was detached from my skull. Near enough every bone in my face was broke. My roof of my mouth was snapped in half.
Surgeons had to wire up and rebuild Sean Fairweather's shattered face, holding it together with metal plates.
I really do think that he did attempt to murder me, because the way he left me, he more or less did leave me for dead.
Dunlop was charged with attempted murder, but admitted the lesser offence of causing grievous bodily harm and got 7 years jail.
He pleaded not guilty to attempted murder. Then he pleaded guilty to grievous bodily harm, which, snapping a baseball bat over a man's face, to us it's attempted murder, and stabbing a woman with a barbecue skewer several times is attempted murder. And he was only given 7-year sentence for trying to kill these 2 people. And at that point, although we were pleased he was off the streets, it didn't make any difference to our position, because although we'd been told verbally that he'd confessed to killing Julie in pubs and things, because of the double jeopardy rule, it didn't make any difference to our situation.
Dunlop was behind bars, but that didn't stop his boasting about killing Julie Hogg. For Cleveland police, haunted by their failure to find her body, here was a chance to act against the man many believed had got away with murder.
We received some intelligence that indicated that Billy Dunlop, whilst he was serving a prison sentence for assault, was starting to indicate that he'd been responsible for Julie Hogg's death. That came to myself and a small team of detectives to investigate.
A woman prison officer who'd befriended Dunlop was fitted with a hidden recorder. She secretly taped 60 hours of conversation that provided a dramatic breakthrough. He admitted he'd murdered Julie, strangling her because she'd laughed at him.
A lot of people didn't think it was me, because they could have understood if she'd been beaten to death. You know, got black eyes, that sort of thing. But there was no black eyes or anything.
Why did you kill her, though?
Just arguing over daft little things, and I lost it, didn't I? Try to bury it in the back of my mind now rather than think about it.
I can't imagine somebody actually thinking about putting somebody under the bath.
Don't even ask me where it came from, because I don't know. It doesn't bother me now, though. I've been clear of it, so it doesn't matter how I tell now, does it?
We were told that he had confessed to a prison officer, and his confession had been taped. We'd believed as a family that the police did get the right man, but other people had an element of doubt, and now with this confession, there was no element of doubt.
Dunlop was taken from his prison cell to be interviewed at Stockton police station about his secretly recorded confession. But he knew he couldn't be charged with murder again.
Did you kill Julie Hogg?
Yeah. I just lost it. I went over there and strangled her.
Where were you in the house?
Dunlop told them he'd stuffed Julie's clothing in a bin bag and left it outside his digs for the dustman.
Before you snapped.
Then he'd hidden her keys under the floorboards.
Why did you do that?
Who knows? Sometimes in your subconscious you're wanting to get caught. And there's not a day goes by that I don't think about that night. About what I done to her. To Julie. Her family. There's Kevin, her son. You can go to Julie's mum now. And you can tell I've told the truth.
If he'd felt any element of remorse, why did he sit for 3 months? Know where Julie's body was? What he's done, in fact, is made an absolute mockery of the British justice system by his confession.
Dunlop's admission proved he'd lied at both murder trials. He was charged with 2 offences of perjury, lying under oath. In court, to see the man who'd killed his mother was Julie's son, Kevin.
When I was in the court, he looked up and then looked straight back down. Didn't really look. I just thought, yeah, I think he knows that I'm here. And he also knows that I'm going to get justice for my mum.
His lawyer said Dunlop's contrition in facing up to his terrible crime was unequalled in the British penal system. He got 6 years and was returned to his prison cell. But still, there was no life sentence. Angela Usher made a statement for Julie's family.
He should have been convicted of murder, and to see him prosecuted only for perjury is a poor consolation. In the end, we are relieved that he's been sentenced, but we're not happy with the sentence. I don't understand law at all. He's a man in court, putting his hand up to doing a murder, but just going away for lying. And that's what I never understand that. So until the law's changed, Anne will keep fighting.
He confessed he strangled her. Perjury is a poor substitute for a life sentence for the death of our daughter.
It's 13 years since Julie Hogg's murder. Her son Kevin now knows what really happened.
Throughout his growing up, he used to ask different members of the family different things, suggesting, you know, that what had happened to his mum. But he never came out right and said, was my mum murdered? He didn't ask that. It was just skirting round the subject.
The truth was out there, on the streets and in the playground, and nothing could protect Kevin from that.
Happened as I was 13, and I'd heard rumours, a friend had told me. Like, I was told that she'd slipped in the bath and I didn't know what to believe. Like, my natural instincts were to believe my parents, and then I really didn't know what to do, so to find out for myself, I just thought the only thing I could do is, instead of asking, because I was too frightened in case I upset anybody, I went to the library. I just looked through, like, all the newspapers of 1989, because I wasn't too sure on any specific date. Just going through them and gradually getting to the end of the year. And all of a sudden it just came on, like, just like, look. One headline what came up, what was quite moving, was "Please come home to us," and with a big picture of my mum. And I just couldn't, like, take no more looking at them, and just, like, put them all away and went out and then went for some fresh air, because it just felt as though I couldn't breathe, and if I didn't get outside to breathe, I'd maybe pass out. And then maybe 2 weeks from then, when I'd found out, I was told the truth.
Kevin has joined the family's efforts to have his mother's killer brought to justice. The past few years have seen the knife twisted repeatedly, from the failed police search of Julie's house to Billy Dunlop's boasting after his acquittal. But the experience has made them determined to get the double jeopardy law changed.
Instead of just sitting back and thinking, well, you know, it's the law of the land, it can't be retried, you've suddenly thought, well, you know, if the law can be changed, you've done everything that you can to help this happen. And in doing that, you've obtained, hopefully, justice for Julie.
Across the northeast, Julie's family are now getting support from people unable to understand how a law dating back to feudal times can allow a man to get away with murder.
We were absolutely astounded at the number of people, strangers to me and my husband, came up to us in the street while we were out shopping and saying good luck with your campaign, the law should be changed. We haven't had one person say that they disagree with what we're doing, not one.
Julie's mother takes her campaign to newspapers, radio and television stations, challenging eminent lawyers like Imran Khan, who opposes changes to double jeopardy.
Would you be happy with a perjury sentence because of an 800-year law? As a person, I don't mean as a lawyer.
No. I agree with you.
Would you be happy with a perjury sentence?
Of course I wouldn't.
You wouldn't? Well, that answers it all. I think you should stop the cameras now, because that answers it all. You wouldn't be happy with a perjury sentence, and we are not. And we'll go to the European Court of Human Rights for justice for our daughter.
Julie's family regularly travel to London to campaign. The government is now committed to changing the double jeopardy law, but there are still doubts about whether the changes will be made retrospective, allowing Billy Dunlop to be tried again. Until they're sure, the family will continue speaking out.
Nan and Grandad have campaigned tremendously to get as far as they have, to see the Home Secretary, and it's just a tremendous feeling that they're campaigning, because it's so important to us that it should be put right.
Today, the Mings are lobbying a Home Office minister and their MP.
She talks to government ministers, secretaries of state, ministers of state, just like more readily than I'm talking to you, and as though she was talking simply to her next-door neighbour and explaining it in very direct terms, always respectful, but always candid, and quite astonishingly forthright.
What he's done, in fact, is made an absolute mockery of the British justice system. Man boasting he'd killed your child, then going on to commit other crimes. I just could not sit back and do nothing. The family of any murder victim will tell you they do the life sentence. It went very well. Feel a lot more positive about things. The minister said that the double jeopardy issue, the white paper, will be published this spring, and hopefully changes will take place next year.
Billy Dunlop remains in jail, serving a new sentence for lying at his murder trials. With good behaviour, he could be back on the streets of Billingham in 3 years' time. It's Julie's family who are now serving the life sentence.
I want justice for my daughter Julie, no more, no less, and Dunlop should be sentenced to life.
You start reflecting back, thinking about the night with Julie. She didn't wear 7 stone ring and wet. She wouldn't stand a chance against a man like that.
I used to think that people were punished for the crime they've done. That's what I was taught, and no one would get away with it. He left somebody without a parent, a mother, daughter, or a wife. Just absolutely unreal.
After the news.
When the footlights were on, she was happy. But when the curtain came down, that was the agony and the pain.
The first thing I would think about was when could I have the next drink?
The unforgettable Joan Sims in 20 minutes.
Then at 10:50, Pulling Power tells the story of Britain's oldest motor manufacturer, the Daimler story.